Welcome back to the channel. This is The Casuals. I'm Jin.
And I'm Saki.
And today's episode is Adventure Memories. And so, the last adventure memory that we had, Saki told about his, fun little stories about his campfire adventures. And so, I thought, today, this cycle of adventure memories, or this episode for adventure memories, would be a good one for, my own personal story. We do still have other stories that we've done together, but I just thought it'd be nice to, just share my own personal little story. And today's episode is about basically my like experience going to Japan and like staying there for a couple of weeks. And so, gosh, the first time I ever went to Japan, well, rather alone, because I think I've been there once in my childhood. But it was like one of those those tours that they do. It's really common, especially when you're doing it when you're like. It's really common for like the like quick stops, whatever. Like you stay at one location for like maybe 1 hour at most, and you move on. Keep rinse and repeat. So you never really get like that sense of like the feel of like the place that you're at fully, right? You only can get like a glimpse of that. I don't know. Have you ever been on those kind of tour guided stuff before?
I've done like a bus tour in New York where they do multiple stops. Oh, hey, we're here for an hour, 2 hours, and we go to the next stop, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's basically the similar experience to that. But that was when I was really young. I barely have any memories of that, and so, it was my junior year in high school, I believe. Yeah, I want to say just before I started the junior year. So after 10th grade was finished, I went into my junior year, and during that summer, I decided to go to Japan. And thinking back on it, it was kind of, how do I say this? Kind of odd that I decided to go to Japan during that time. But the main reason why I even went there was because my sister was staying in Japan for a whole year during that time, and so I was like, hey, because my sister's in Japan, I can take this opportunity to go to Japan and have someone who's familiar with the place in Japan, in order, and like I don't get lost all alone, nothing really troubling, because again I'm only like at this point 16, 17 years old, which is still pretty young to be traveling alone anywhere outside, let alone outside the country. And so I went and, met up with my sister, and man, I remember the plane trip there. I had it was one of the worst experiences I've ever had traveling, because I was so nervous. Like, I was extremely nervous, because again, I'm without my parents, traveling outside the country without your parents it's a scary thing for most people, I would say. Have you ever traveled outside of the country when you were pretty young without your parents?
Um, Not like as young as you were. I was maybe like 22 when I
Mm,
first did it. So I wasn't like as young as you, but I have done it.
yeah. I had so I'm like sitting there, I'm just like, mother, where art thou? Where art thou? I need assistance, right? That was basically my experience. And I got sick. Basically, like kind of like a, how do you say this? Like almost travel sickness, whatever it's called, like the motion sickness, similar to that. Where I was just like really unsettled and everything. And man, it felt so bad. And it wasn't until I got off through the layover flight, in Korea, because I didn't go to Tokyo. I went to Osaka, and there's no international airport in Osaka. It's all in Tokyo. So in order to go to the southern area of Japan, you would have to typically take a layover flight that specifically goes on a smaller plane that would typically, charter their way to the bottom areas, and that's what I did. And you're probably gonna laugh at me at this, right? But I remember I use an app called Kakao Talk. Basically allows you to use. It's basically any other like social media platform that's like chat room based, so like Line or even Discord even. And I used that to call my mom. And it was like what 5 a.m. there during the time when I called her, and it was like 2 o'clock for me. And I remember calling her, and I was like, I'm hungry because I didn't eat anything. I was really hungry during the flight for like 16 hours, and I was just like, I don't know what to do, right? I'm at the Korean international, like whatever, I think it's Incheon or something like that. I'm at the international section waiting for my flight, and I want to eat, but I don't know what to do, right? And my mom, who's awake at like 5 a.m. or something like that, really tired, she's like, just go to one of the any of the restaurants, right? And just pay them. I'm like, but I don't have the Korean currency, which is won, right? How am I ever gonna buy food with United States dollars, right? And she's like, do you realize where you're at? I'm like, I'm at the airport. And she's like, good. Now, what is that airport, specific section that you're in? I'm like, I'm in the international area. And she's like, do you honestly think they wouldn't accept the US dollar in an international airport, right? And I was just like, no. For some reason, I was so like out of it that I was just like, they won't accept my money. I'm gonna starve to death here, right? I'm a poor little kid with only United States dollars. How am I ever gonna buy something to eat in the Incheon airport, right? She's like, just go do it, right? And I finally got the minuscule courage I have, which honestly shouldn't even take that courage, because what's the worst I can do? Say no, and then I would just have to find an exchanger, some currency exchanger somewhere. But and I was just like, and when I ordered something, I ordered a pork cutlet, fried pork cutlet, the tonkatsu, and I was at the cashier. I was just like, one tonkatsu, please, and they're like, sure, and it cost this much. I'm like, this amount they're sure. He's like, he looks at it and he puts it in the register, and then he's like, yes, he gave me back like US dollar exchange. I was like, oh, it works. After the phone call I had it with my mom, I was just like, oh my god, it works. And then I finally get, layover flight was peaceful, 1 hour at most, get to Japan and everything, land, meet up with my sister. And I think I remember telling you this before. Is that when I went during the summer, right? Middle of summer. And it was raining season. It was pouring the day I came.
I think you did tell me that, yeah.
And it was the worst, because I made the bad decision. In hindsight, I should have probably researched this, because I was so excited to go to Japan, because I really wanted to go there before, but I never researched anything about Japan. Now that I think about it, I was pretty dumb to do that. But I didn't realize that it would be, well, one, it would be crazy, raining like crazy there, but two, I brought my shoes that I got, right? For some reason, I decided, yeah, I'm gonna wear my new shoes, right? I already had a pair of shoes that worked before, right? But then just before I went to Japan, shoes kind of started tearing, very little, right? And the actual holes starting to appear. And so I was like, oh well, guess this is an opportunity to break into my new shoes while in Japan, And so first day, my new shoes, right? Not even 20 hours after I had taken it out of the box, because it had been in the box the whole time. And it's a Nike free runs, whatever. It's a free run. Remember this. This is gonna be important details. You can already probably see where this is coming, but as I step out, get outside into the terminal, and then after we get into the bus and everything, and I get off the bus, right? First step, my foot is soaked in water. So already I'm off to a perfect start. Jeez. Because again, free runs are designed for air to pass through, better or something. I don't know. It's not basically you're not supposed to get hot, right? So they have all these air, it's fabric, thin fabric, right?
A mesh material, not leather.
Yeah.
Or material.
And so first day, my foot is already soaking. I'm just like, this is gonna be a good day, right? Because it's only the afternoon when I went there, and so and we went to the place that my sister was staying at. I wasn't gonna stay with them because it was a dormitory full of girls. Obviously, me being an adolescent boy should not be in there. So I just temporarily stayed at that house because the people that I'm supposed to stay with weren't home yet, and they needed to pick me up later on. Because it was a ways apart from them. And so I took a shower, and then I finally get or my sister finally says, "Hey, I got the message from the dudes that's supposed to pick you up and take them to take you them to the place that you're supposed to stay at." And I was like, "All right." Um, and so I was like, "Okay." And so I went downstairs, and mind you, this was only maybe an hour past, like an hour had passed since I had got into that house and showered and everything, and been like just chilling. Mind you, the weather there is extremely humid. So based on where where we live, which is California, California is what you would call like a low moisture type weather, where there's not that much it's just you would know if like when it's super there's a lot of moisture humidity, sorry, there's not a lot of humidity around, but in Japan it's super humid, right? So my shoes did not dry. So I put on my shoes, and then I just feel like, great, the new pair of socks that I just put on got wet again. I should have known this, by the way. I did not think this through when that happened. And so what's it called? So my new socks that I put on are already soaked, and with water that happened to be on my shoes, my brand new shoes. And so I went off to the what's it called? Went off to so the guys come over and pick me up, and then we went off to the place that we were supposed to go. And it was a typical apartment. So like the place that I stayed at was in a typical apartment, and one of the worst things was getting the luggage up there because there was no elevator. Which is interesting because I think a lot of the older buildings in Japan, like apartment buildings, they don't have elevators. As far as I know, I could be wrong in this, but compared to the United States, whenever you're in like a multi-floored building, no matter what it is, there are that has more than like two or three floors. Typically has an elevator. In Japan, the apartment building that I went just did not have an elevator there. So I had to lug two very heavy suitcases because, excuse me, two very heavy suitcases because I was going to stay there for a while. And oh man, were the stairs like not the greatest of times, because it was a spiral staircase, right? So it's really it's also really compact because everything in Japan is really it's more compact, right? And they build upwards, so they don't have a lot of space to work with in terms of width. So especially when they made the stairs, they made it really compact. It's just because they have to save on space. And so, sorry, excuse me again. I'm kind of gassy because I did eat dinner about 2 hours ago, so my gas is starting to act up. But it took some time to get up there because I was taking like steep steps and I was like lugging it up like the stairs. Like it wasn't like small short stairs or anything. So I think we had to go up the third floor or something like that. I don't remember what apartment. Like the floor that we were staying in. It was more than two for sure. It might have been the third or fourth. I'm pretty sure it was the third. And so I finally get there and exhausted and finally get it done. And got some introductions to two really cool people. I did some silly things there I shouldn't have done. It was considered rude. But they were chill with it because they probably understood that I was a dumb teenager during that time. And so that was basically the first day because we didn't do anything after that point because I didn't have the energy to do anything. The only thing we really did was eat, and that's about it. So first day I was feeling like great. It was getting nighttime and I knocked out immediately because again I was awake for like 16 hours on the plane. I did not sleep. I wanted to sleep. I did not sleep, and so I woke up pretty early. I think I woke up at like 7 a.m. Yeah, 7 a.m. I want to say. And so, I woke up and we had breakfast. And one of the cool things about that apartment is that, in Japan, there's trains everywhere. Like, just trains everywhere. Well, in most places. In most populated places. I know in rural places that don't have that many people anymore, they've been closing down a lot of like the train lines, but that's a whole different topic. And so woke up and then I was in the living room, because there's no other space, and so I was in the living room, and you can like, basically I opened up the curtains, right, and through like the glass, whatever panel door, whatever, I can see the train, like the railway, right, and you see trains just going by. I'm just like, that's cool, right? It wasn't too noisy, surprisingly, but I was able to see trains, and I thought that was like one of the coolest things, and I think it really hit me there that I was finally in a different, like, country. Because I kind of in the first day I kind of just like stumbled along, like, oh, like, kind of just like I'm weirded out. I didn't know what to do. And so second day I was already taken to some other place like locally. So I was basically being taught on how to use the train system, and it was like a 10-minute walk to get to the train station. It wasn't actually that far, but it was still a 10-minute walk. And so I was taught everything. And one of the first things that threw me off that I didn't think that kind of threw me off was when you go up the stairs, right? Whenever there's like a stair, like escalator stairs or anything like that, there is a certain rule that needs to be followed, right? It's not like a law or anything. It's like a unspoken etiquette rule where what's it called? You stay when whoever, like, if you're going up, you stay on the right side, and if you're going down, you stay on the left side. I believe that's how it was in Osaka. They told me that, that is etiquette. Whenever you're going up, you go on the right side, and when you're going down, you go on the left side. I could be mixing it up because in Tokyo, it's actually reversed. When you're going up, you go on the left side, and when you're going down, you go on the right side. I think that's how it works. If I remember, it's been so long since I've, it's been so long since I even recalled that. But that's the first thing that threw me off. Because in America, there's no such thing as that. There's no hidden etiquette or anything like that. So people just go up and down as they please. Usually, most people stay on the right side, and most people go down on the left side. But in Japan, it's like really orderly there. So that, like, threw me off. And so, like, that was kind of interesting. The next interesting part was, well, the train station itself. It was massive even for a small town. It was massive, in my opinion. There were multiple, like, I think, like, connections or something like that, like, train stops, whatever. Because even though we're in a, like, we're still, like, in a slightly, it's not like we were, like, super not desolate, but, like, super small population. It was, like, decent sized population, I would say. Like, it's like basically non-major city, but still with, like, urban area. I guess that's the best way you could describe it. But the one thing that it still surprised me just how many, like, different choices there were. And I was surprised. Oop, hold up, give me a moment. Anyways, back to the story. The second thing that surprised me the most was just how the trains worked in general. Because have you ever taken the train in America before?
Not that I could think of. I don't even think I've taken a bus.
Wow.
I've always had someone drive me, or I drove myself.
And so I was very surprised on how the trains worked. Is it because for some reason I just couldn't fathom the idea that you would simply look for a destination that you're supposed to go, and then you input it, and then they give you a ticket for that. I don't know why I couldn't fathom it, but I was just surprised about that. I was just like, ow, Japan's so advanced. Hint, this kind of, format has been around for a while. I just thought it was advanced during that time. Just me being silly, Because when you're in a new environment, everything feels strange,
Oh, yeah.
Even, like, the tiniest bit of deviation from what you're used to feels out of the world compared to that, right? And so, I thought it was cool, and then my sister enlightened me in the fact that you can buy a train pass you pay a certain amount of money per year, and what's it called? And you can use the train as many as you want, but you basically have to pay, like, a hefty fee for a train pass. And so, but I wasn't gonna stay there for long, so I didn't buy the train pass. I literally just paid for each individual ticket, ride, and it wasn't that much. I think, like, to go, like, I think it was like maybe 20-30 miles. It was like $3 or $4 per ride, I think. That's how much it costed. So it was actually not that expensive at all. Even if you were to do a non-train pass. Obviously, train pass is far cheaper depending on, if you're living there and you're constantly moving. But yeah, it was cheap. And so, so I have a funny story related to this. So in Japan, they have different trains for different reasons. And what I mean by that is, unlike I think trains, I think this is how it works in New York, or like most train stations in America. One train does not go to every stop, or no, rather, America, one train goes to every stop that there needs to be, right? So every major station they'll stop by, right? And there's only major stations in America because America does not typically, their infrastructure in terms of transportation infrastructure does not rely on public transportation that much, especially on trains. And so they only have major train station stops, whatever, like very big ones where, trains will offload a lot of passengers and take in a lot of passengers. But in Japan, that's different because one of the main transportation I believe in Japan is trains. And so because you have to accommodate for all the different prefectures, different little city stops, neighborhoods and everything, there's going to be a lot of different stops, right? But one train could not possibly do that, hit every stop, because you'd be hitting 100 stops before the next major major station. So what they do is they give you two different train stations, or train types rather. One is a regular train and one is the express train. As you can probably tell just judging by their name, the regular train hits at every stop, right? There needs to be before you get to like the, whatever destination you need to go, right? And typically that does take longer to get to, just because they stop at every single stop for people to come in and out, right? But the express train basically only hits the major stops. And so that's why it's called express, because you're faster. You're doing 5 times less stops as the normal ones. And so here comes conundrum number 1. Knowing which one to take. Because back then my Japanese was not the greatest. I had basically no idea what I was reading, even if they gave what's it called? I think it's called romanization, right? Romanization, whenever they kind of spell it out what they're saying.
I think
it is.
I don't know the actual term.
I think it is not Romage. I think I don't remember. It might be. I'm pretty sure it's Romage now that I think about it. Romanization. But anyways, even with that, and English words being there, because Japan is a popular tourist place, so they have a lot of English words, signs just to help out tourists. I was befuddled because, my sister would be like, because again, I'm not staying with my sister, she's staying with someone else, and I'm staying with someone else, and we're pretty far away. We're like 40 minutes away. We're pretty far. And so whenever she's like, hey, get to this destination, I'm just looking at my phone, I'm just like, does this match up with the express, or do I take the normal, right? Obviously, the safest bet is to take the normals, because the normals is, stops at every stop. So eventually I'll hit the stop, I will. But the problem was, if I needed to get there on time, right? Taking the express would be better if obviously, if my stop allowed it to be, taken. And so I was always often running with that. And then I don't think I ever told you this story. I told you some stories about when I was in Japan, but I don't think I ever told you this specific one. So one time I went to Umeda, a major city, basically a major neighborhood, and I stayed there for for a very long time. I think it was until close to 10 p.m. Because I was just doing stuff there, exploring, and it was time for me to get back to the place I'm going at, right? And the issue is, because Umeda is so each train station is kind of different in the way they present things. I was so used to the express and non-express station, and knowing which ones to go, just because I'm so used to going to Umeda. Umeda is obviously a major station, so I could just take the express and get there. But here I had no idea if the place I was staying in was considered a major train station stop. So for literally at 10 to 10, like about 10:30, I sat down on a bench, just staring at which train to go. Right when they're coming about in and out, right? Because there was express and normal, express and normal. It was basically rotating every time they came in, right? I was just like, which one do I go on, right? And I texted my sister, but I guess my sister didn't see my message until way later. But I was like, I don't know what I'm going on, right? And then I saw the notice, right? All train stations will stop at 11:30 or something like that, right? I'm just like, shoot, like I only have about an hour. There's no way I can make this decision like 30 minutes later because if I make a mistake, I'm stranded. Trains will literally not be active after that point I get off because it takes about 30-ish, 40-ish minutes for me to get to from Umeda to the place that I'm staying at. So I was just like sitting there. I'm just like, fuck it. And so I sent it, right? I went on the express train. And so, thank God, well, really, thankfully, my decision was correct. And, well, really, it didn't really matter. It was a 50-50, or more like 75-25, honestly. Because if I had taken local, my chances would have been higher. But, like, thankfully, I chose, correctly, quote unquote. And, it's the express station stopped at where I was, right? And so, I think this is where really I started changing, I think, as a person, was because when I started going back to the place that I was staying at, it was really late at night. It was like, at this point, it was getting at 11 o'clock, right? And I just remember the ambiance and just like staying in a city, like in a place like Japan at night. It just felt so different compared to here in the United States. I don't know how to describe. It's such a weird feeling, when you're like, I'm not a tourist. I'm not really, doing group activity things. I'm not really, how do I say this? I'm not really having any objective in terms of like an actual set schedule outside of like, a few meetups and everything, So just like kind of like, I almost felt like I was living there. And like actually living there as in like I was actually a citizen there or something like that. And just like walking down that just made me feel, how do you see this? So insignificant, I guess. That was the mood. And I think after that, I started changing a lot. In my opinion, at least. I don't know if you probably never noticed a change in me, just because whenever I'm with you, I'm more goofy, kind of like the Dumb and Dumber brothers, but I'm both dumb and dumber. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you probably never observed an actual change, but in terms of what I did, interactions with my family and with like all my other friends, because I'm more reserved with them, I changed a lot. And so yeah, it was a completely different vibe. And you mentioned this to me before we started recording that you've only stayed in Japan, or you only stayed in Japan for 1 day, right?
Yeah, it was for my layover when I was coming back from Thailand.
And you don't, and like none of your childhood was ever like, visiting Japan, or even if you did, you probably don't remember.
No, when I went to Thailand was the first time I ever traveled outside the States.
Ooh, okay. So, yeah, you basically never got to experience Japan. So, a little bit early, I guess, revealing early. Actually, no, I won't say anything yet. We'll probably save this for the actual 6-month anniversary, which is coming up. But yeah, like it's a very, very odd experience, I have to say. I don't think it was like completely life changing, but it definitely hits a certain mood after a while, or it hits a certain mood, and so gosh, what other things do I want to talk about? Basically, yeah, a lot of the times, like, funny enough, when you go touring, right, you have like usually a set objective that you want to do in terms of visiting certain places, trying out certain things, or doing certain activities, trying out certain foods, right? For me, I didn't have that. Really, I just kind of existed for 2 weeks there, 2 or 3 weeks, and I remember a lot of my time. It took up, like, I would say a good 25% of my time there. It was me just walking around with earbuds, like, plugged in, the old, wired earbuds, because back then wireless was still kind of like a new thing. I think Apple had just come out with their AirPods, I think, during that time. Or it might have been like a year later or something. And so I was walking there, listening to songs, music, and just walking around. That's literally what I did 25% of my time there. And I actually enjoyed it. I don't know. When you, what is your opinion when you feel like if you're traveling, do you feel like you have to do certain things, certain like objectives, certain activities? Or do you feel like, just walking around, taking in like the, kind of like the mood and vibe of the place and just like, doing almost what a normal person would do? Do you think like there's a time and place for that? Or do you think it's like, no, you should absolutely, go and try doing like tourist things?
I'd say a little bit of both. I'd say it's good to have, some things to do so you're not literally just wandering, most of the time. But it's also good to kind of wander because then you kind of discover things on your own.
Mm.
But I know for like Thailand, I was basically just following my girlfriend because she wanted to visit and I didn't speak Thai, and I still don't. So I was basically mute for a month. I literally spoke like only time I spoke was to her.
Oh.
Other than that, anytime we were out, I didn't talk. So basically, she just took me around, and we didn't really do, these touristy things. We kind of just did what she used to do on a day, and when she lived there. So it was kind of nice not having to go all these tourist things. So I'd say a little bit of both.
Mm. Yeah, like, you know, one day if we can, definitely you should take in, like, especially in Japan, it feels very different, I would say. Obviously it's different because you're out of your, home area, but I think it's different in a special way. So maybe you can try it one day. And so I guess another thing I want to talk about is, what's it called? The place that I stayed at, the apartment that I stayed at, on the very bottom, like floor, right? First floor, base floor, whatever you want to call it, there was a shop, right? There was like two shops underneath at the very bottom of the floor, right? And one was an okonomiyaki shop, and the other one I don't remember what it was, but there was an okonomiyaki shop, and I just remember going like, why not try it, right? Because there's an okonomiyaki shop, literally right where we live. Amazing, right? To think about that when you live like in an apartment and you're on the third floor, and then on the first floor there's a freaking okonomiyaki shop. That's crazy. um, I ended up trying it. It was actually pretty okay. It was good, like, but I don't remember much about the meal other than it was just good. And so that was the only time I really had okonomiyaki until we went to that place in Little Tokyo.
Ah.
I'm already forgetting what that name is, but that wasn't that great, honestly. Or at least the price was charged too high, rather.
Yeah, I don't remember the name either.
that's how disappointed, or not disappointed, but that's just, it's not great. Anyways, had okonomiyaki there, that was amazing. And then I remember I told you this before, where I went to the convenience store like every day.
Oh, well, when I was there, I went to a 7-Eleven there. Oh, those are so much better than the ones we have in the States.
It's insane how different it is, right? So many good stuff there. Like the sandwiches there are even like, I want, like when we say incredible, we're not saying like, oh my god, gourmet, like, sandwiches. No, it's just incredible because it's a convenience store, but it doesn't feel like the sandwich that you're getting is from a convenience store,
Yeah, because
Uh,
like the ones here, it's just drinks, maybe a warmed up hot dog or a slice of pizza that's been sitting out for a few hours.
yeah.
But there, it just hits different.
Yeah, it's a lot of
Every
variety, I will say. Like, even sandwiches have a lot of variety. Where egg salads, ham and whatever. And there's fruit sandwiches, I had a fruit sandwich, it was delightful. And like there's all sorts of stuff like, ramen, yakisoba buns, They even have what's it called? The ones that I really liked eating there was onigiri.
Oh, the little rice balls.
Yeah, I loved eating them. They were so good and cheap.
Yeah, we
um
need to go find some, by the way.
Yeah. So I ended up eating a lot of that, too, just because, why not? And, gosh, I think I only have time for one more story. So, there was a, So and I went to visit like a college campus, right? And when we got off the train station, I was told, like, obviously, even though I was told where it's gonna be, I have no idea where it's good, like, what it's like, just because I don't know that place. First time I've ever heard of it. How am I gonna know the topography of the area, right? And
Hmm.
so, I get off the station, and I was like, oh, cool, where do we go, right? And I look left and right, right. To my left, there's like a hill, like a pretty steep hill going up, right? Um, and to my right is like normal, whatever. I'm like, oh, where are we gonna go? Where's the college, right? And my sister's like, to the left. I'm like, excuse me? And so I was like, okay. So to the left we go, and I go up this hill, and it's the steepest hill I've ever climbed. Like in terms of like, there's actual roads and everything. I'm not talking about like there's because I've definitely been on steeper in terms of like mountainous areas, where it's like super steep, but it's like a trail path. No, here is an actual road, right, with the sidewalk and everything. And so I was walking up, and damn, it was steep. I would have to estimate it was almost close to like a 40-degree angle, or not 40-degree angle, like close to a 45, like not even 40, yeah, 45-degree angle, which is pretty steep in terms of that, right? If not
Like,
higher, like I would estimate even closer to 50.
can I say something really quick?
Uh huh.
When you're like, dude, it's a steep street. I don't know why, but my brain was like, so like a 90-degree angle. And I'm wait a minute, you can't drive up a 90-degree angle. Hold up, it's got to be less.
Yeah, the people there are just freaking going up wall. They defy gravity.
They're built different.
They're built different. But yeah, it was steep, right? And I really felt it in my thighs when I was climbing. I was just like, oh my god. Each step I'm taking, dude, I was like starting to get out of breath because I wasn't out of shit. I like never really exercised, because your average high school kid who never bothered exercising. And so I was getting out of steps, and I look in front of me, right? And I just got shocked. I think I told you this before too. I was shocked because in front of me there was a woman, like a college student woman, wearing, a dress, having a handbag, and she was wearing high heels. And she was trekking up the hill, like the street that's at like a 45 to 50-degree angle, like it was nothing. Not a sweat broken. She was just going through like it's normal. I'm like Jesus. Like,
Should have looked at her calves, man. They're probably like huge.
no, they weren't. They were just normal. That's why I was even more shocked. I'm like, what in the world, right? And like, I was falling behind fast. Like, she was going on like just normal pace. Like, she just got like another day. Like, clearly it's not her first rodeo there because she's a college student there. And so, we get to this point where it's like kind of levels out. So there's like the hill keeps on going up, right, and like goes towards the left. But we went towards the right where it's like a flat hill. I was like, oh, thank God, like finally some flat ground, right? And my sister's like, and I'm like, what do you mean? She points ahead, and I'm like, oh God, there's another hill.
Should have been like, I need to be Ubered.
I was
I
like,
need a,
oh dear God.
I need a taxi.
Yeah, so the one saving grace is that it was cool. It's that weather there was actually cool, despite it being summer. During that day, it just happened to be cooler. Not like I'm not talking about like 50-degree cool. I'm talking about like maybe 70 degrees at most. So it was nice, and I don't know. And then like it took like literally 30 minutes from getting to the train station to get to like one of the buildings in the college campus. And I remember taking I think I took a photo of this. I'm gonna have to show you later, but I took a photo of it, and like in the main building, and you look out to the window towards even more of the mountains hills. There's like 5 different buildings located in all different directions, far away from each other. Like some of them in the hills, some of them like even further up, some of them down like towards like the right or anything. I'm just like, what in the world is this college campus? Like, Christ, is this a college campus for mountain climbers?
Making sure their students stay in shape.
They were very much in shape. I have not seen like any bigger person there outside of me.
I don't think they would have made it.
Who knows? But yeah, like I was just like, holy crap! Like, how do you commute to this daily? I can't imagine commuting this to the daily, dude. I would die. I wouldn't die, but I would get so fit there.
Oh yeah, your legs would be like huge.
Huge.
Wouldn't
I
have
would lose
to
a
feel
lot
like
of
they had a
weight.
gym at all.
Yeah, I would lose a lot of weight. I'd be the healthiest I would have ever been. And actually, in fact, when I came back from Japan, I had a lot of stamina because the amount of climbing that I had to do, like against the hills and everything, because there's a lot of steep hills in Japan, and so I just basically got a lot of stamina because of that. And then I lost it all because I did nothing back in the United States. So the irony.
So it just kind of basically reverted back to normal.
Yep, reverted back to normal. And so, yeah, that was basically. Oh wait, I forgot. I have to tell you about my story about the trains. There was one more thing I forgot to talk to you about. So up to this prior point, the only time before riding the first trains in Japan, the only other time I ever rode a train was on a bullet train, for like a tourist thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so bullet trains are super fast, right? But they're also super stable. They usually don't make a lot of turns. And even if they did, it's like a slow turn over time. And so, you know, it's really stable, and you can just walk around like normal or whatever. And so, I got on the train, right? And my sister's like, grab onto something, and like grab onto one of those, because like they have those little like grips that come from above, right? She's like,
oh, okay.
grab on it. I'm like, why? And she's like, you're gonna fall if you don't. I'm like, what do you mean I'm gonna fall if I don't? Like, she's like, just do it, or else you're gonna regret it. I'm like, okay, right? And because I'm in a new place, I would rather listen to my sister than do something stupid, right? And so the train moves, and immediately I lurch forward, and I'm just like, oh my god, right? My sense of balance just got thrown off completely. And like the entire train ride, I was trying my damn hardest not to fall, because in the trains there in Japan are like not like bullet trains. They take a lot of turns, and they accelerate and deaccelerate really fast. And so, if I had to describe it in terms of like close to like the closest thing where you can imagine it in terms of like a person who's never ridden a train in Japan before, do you know how you get those yoga balls?
Yeah.
Imagine putting a big board on it and you're trying to balance on it.
I can barely balance without the board or the ball.
So that's what it's like. And so I swear to God, my core strength, my like core, like my core area, my abdomen, like it formed like a mini 6-pack because of that. Because it takes a lot of core strength to get used to it. Like eventually, like right away, like after one day, I was immediately used to it. But like, holy, it took so much strength to not fall. And I was so glad I held onto the thing, because I would have fallen flat on my face because of it. It was crazy. But yeah, like, whoever goes to Japan and you're riding a train, make sure you grab onto something, because you're gonna fall if you don't. Like, I like, don't even try and test it. You're gonna fall and you're gonna look dumb. And so, yeah, that basically concludes, my some of my adventures or my experiences in Japan. And, I'll end the episode here. And next episode, you probably want to, you mentioned this. You want to probably talk about your, time in Thailand, right?
Oh yeah, I have many stories I could talk about in Thailand.
Despite you being a mute for 1 month.
Yeah, besides me literally being mute for a month, I literally never opened my mouth when we were outside. It was amazing.
So we'll save that for the next, adventure memories. Hopefully, you guys are still around. And so I'll end the episode here. So I'm Jin.
And I'm Saki.
And this is The Casuals. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.